Let me tell you today the story of my stay in Cochin many years ago, where I met a spirit. I had been transferred to Cochin under very difficult conditions. I couldn't take my family with me. There was no accommodation that was provided to me, and there was no support. Nevertheless, I went there. I settled down to my new job, but I was in very difficult conditions personally. I couldn't contact my family all that often, and I had to stay in a hotel. So I contacted a few agents, a few housing agents, to look for a place for me close by to the office. But they couldn't find me any which was suitable. One of them suggested that I go down to the church near the Maharaja College ground, and perhaps they will have rooms which I could take on rent. So the next Saturday morning at about 11:30, I went down to the church and I rang the bell. An elderly nun, perhaps in her late 70s, came to the gate. She smiled at me through the gate and said, "May I help you?" I was very embarrassed. I was 30 years old. I had no place to stay. So I told her that I worked in a government office and that I was in Ernakulam without a place to stay, and I was looking for somewhere I could stay. Perhaps the church could help me. She looked at me for a moment and said, opened the gate and said, "Please come in." So I went inside and she said, "Are you hungry? Have you had lunch?" I said, "I've had breakfast." She said, "No, please come with me." She took me to a large dining hall. There was a huge table, a teak table, shiny. And she said, "Please sit down." I sat down. I looked up at the walls and there were pictures of the Lord Jesus and Virgin Mary on the walls looking down at me. She said, "Wait a minute, I'll get you something to eat." She went away and came back with a plate of steaming rice and mutton curry, some vegetables, cutlery, and a napkin. She put it down and said, "Please have it," smiled, and went around the table and sat down. I said, "Thank you so much. You are so very kind." She said, "Not at all. You are in difficulty. So I'm here to help you." As I had my meal, she said, "Unfortunately, we don't have rooms that we let out anymore. But there is a gentleman, a member of our church, a Dr. Anthony. He has a motel not far from here, and he can let out a room. If you wish, I can talk to Dr. Anthony, and perhaps he would be able to help you." I said, "That would be that would be wonderful. I mean, it'll be very kind of you." She said, "Wait a minute," and went away. After a few minutes, she was back and she said, "I've spoken to Dr. Anthony on the phone, and he has said that the room would be available for you if you go and meet him this evening at 5 at the motel. He would be there." I was so happy. I said, "Reverend Sister, you are so kind." She said, "Not at all, not at all. You are in difficulty, and I'm here to help you." So I had my meal in silence, and as we went back to the gate and I was leaving, she came with me. I turned round and said, "I cannot thank you enough for your kindness." She said, "Any kind of difficulty that you have, please come to the church and I'll help you." And then, as I opened the gate, she said, "Bless you." I walked back to the hotel, which was not far away, and I thought of the day's developments. At about 5, I went down to the motel on Chittoor Road, and there was a receptionist. I said, "Do you have a room for me?" He said, "Yes, indeed, I have a room. Would you like to take a look?" He took me up a flight of stairs. There was a room there. It was a wonderful room. It was large. It has very nice, clean mattresses, new. There was a table, a small TV, an attached bath, very clean. And it was very airy. One could see mango orchards at the back. So I said, "This would be wonderful." He said, "Please come back in half an hour, and the doctor will be here, and please bring your luggage." So I was back in half an hour, and as I entered, I found a plump-looking gentleman in his 40s who got up and said, "I am Dr. Anthony," and smiled and extended his hand. I shook his hand and said, I am Dr. Chowdhury. Thank you so much. He said, not at all, not at all. You are in difficulty and we are here to help you. I am happy that you like my room. I said, yes, it's a wonderful room. It will be very comfortable for me. He said, yes, please stay here as long as you want. So I went to my room and I put my luggage down, and then I came down and Dr. Anthony was still there. I said, doctor, you didn't tell me how much I would have to pay for the room. He said, don't worry about the payment. There are different rates, daily rates, weekly rates, monthly rates. We will charge you as little as we can. I said, thank you so much. You are so considerate. He said, money is not important. You know, I am an eye doctor, an ophthalmologist. I nodded. He said, I was working in Libya, in Tripoli, for the last 3 years. I said, I went there to make money, he told me. And then, you know what I learned there? I learned there that money is not everything. So I came back. I'm back here now in Ernakulam, and I'm very happy. So I stayed in Dr. Anthony's guest house for the next 7 days. I would walk to office, and on the way back, I would have my evening meal in one of the restaurants. And then I met Dr. Anthony almost every evening. And then one day he asked me, where are you having your meals? I said, in one of the restaurants on my way back from office. He said, is the food okay? I said, not quite, but then what can I do? He nodded. He said, let me see what I can do for you. You're going down, I said, yes, I'm not keeping well. I don't know how long I'll survive. He said, okay, let me see. The next evening, he said, I have good news for you. I can organize an evening meal for you every evening. Is that all right? I said, that would be wonderful. I mean, it would, I don't want to eat in those restaurants. He said, no, please don't eat there. I'll get you a meal every evening. I said, will it not be inconvenient? He said, no, it's the same food that we eat. I'll ask one of the people who work for me to bring it to you. The next evening when I came back from office, I found a shiny tiffin carrier with a napkin and cutlery on my table. I opened it and I found a teeming Kerala rice, delicious sambar, chicken curry and some vegetables. It was a wonderful meal. Each night thereafter, I received this tiffin carrier without fail. Some nights it would have chicken, some night it would have fish, other nights it would have stuffed crab. The delicious meals that I was having almost every evening. This went on for 3 months. I had almost given up hopes for getting back to Delhi and to my family. Till one day my director came from Delhi. I wanted to raise the topic of my difficulties here in Cochin, but he never gave me a chance. So I couldn't talk to him. He went back and I thought to myself that I would have to stay here for much longer. Then after 7 days or so, I received an order saying that I had been transferred from Cochin to Delhi. I quickly made arrangements for travel and I went to see Dr. Anthony. I wanted to thank him for all his kindness over the last 3-4 months. But Dr. Anthony was not there. He had gone to Bangalore. So I went down to the church. I wanted to thank the sister. I rang the bell. A young nun came to the gate. I said, I didn't get her name, but this was an elderly sister I had met about 3 months ago on a Saturday morning, and I described the sister. And I want to meet her, I said. She looked at me for a minute and said, there is no such sister in the church. I said, what do you mean? I was here 3 months ago. I had lunch here. She blessed me. I didn't ask her name. I was so distracted. She said, there is no such person in this church. I said, are you sure? Maybe she was here before you came. She said, I have been here for 5 years and we all know each other. It's a small place. There is no such person. It was astounding. I did not know what to say, but I was in such a great hurry to get back to Delhi that I left, took the next flight, and I was back in Delhi. My career took off after that, but then I could never forget the kindness that I had received. Many years later, I found myself in Ernakulam, maybe 20 years later. And my Anuradha and I were going on a cruise to Lakshadweep Islands. I had a morning to spare, so I went down to the church. And I asked the nuns there, uh, try to locate the sister. They all said that they couldn't help me. Time had passed, 20 years, so it was futile. But one of the nuns told me that there have been several inquiries over the years by different people for a nun of that description. I thanked them, left the church, and went to the motel. I asked for Dr. Anthony, and they said Dr. Anthony didn't come there anymore, but I could see him in his house not far away. I walked there. I found Dr. Anthony sitting there looking at some papers. I said, Dr. Anthony, I remember I am Chowdhury. You had been very kind to me 20 years ago. You had sent me food every evening. He looked at me with glassy eyes. He was much older. And he said, is that so? Are you all right now? I said, yes, I came to thank you. He didn't say anything, just went back to his papers. So I got up, I, I said, thank you very much, and left. I had paid my debt to Dr. Anthony. That evening, when my cruise ship was leaving the harbor in Cochin, it was evening. I was standing on deck watching the shoreline, and the lights of the shoreline come up one by one. I thought of the sister whose name I never got, whom I met only once and never subsequently. And I suddenly realized that she was a spirit and not a human being.